Welcome to the Next Gen GTM podcast. In this series, we talk with experts who uncover Next Gen GTM tools and techniques that are driving measurable results for themselves and their clients. I'm Mike Bell, co-founder of Scheduler AI. My guest today is Zach Walker, co-founder of Unicorn. Zach, welcome onto the show.
Hey, man. Appreciate it, Mike. Super pumped to be here. I love what you guys are doing, and I'm excited honored to be a guest today.
Thanks, man. Well, and it was really cool. Before the show, we were chatting about our background, both having like Rockwall, Texas, and like North Alabama in our childhoods and grown-up lives. It's just kind of a wild time.
Absolutely. It is a small world.
It is. Increasingly, I'm learning that. But I got to ask, unicorn, right? I go to your site. It's like a unicorn, but without the O. Is there like a story behind the name and the logo and all that?
Yes. Is there a story? Yes, there is. So we were Revenue Rocket. When my co-founder and I, Chris Ray, when we started this, we were both we had both just been laid off and had recognized like a need in the market, and we had no idea what we were building. We had no idea what it could be. We started with literally just found a name and went with it, and thought it was going to be like, I call it like a lemonade stand. Like we were expecting like a little side hustle lemonade stand on the corner, and very quickly it exploded and grew into a 20+ person team. And we started working with some really sophisticated startups that we felt like our branding wasn't on par with the level of work that we were doing, frankly. And so with literally, who starts a company and does a rebrand 90 days later? Well, we did. And it was a beast to do it, because obviously feedback on Unicorn was like, some people loved it, some people hated it, kind of a deal. You've got all the stuff out there with like unicorn companies and the $1 billion valuation and thanks, Adam Newman and WeWork for ruining that for everybody. And so there's a negative there, but then also like part of what we talk about is like hiring sales unicorns. Everybody in the startup world, like when you make that first sales hire, you're looking for a unicorn because, and we can dive into this later, but there's so many things that are required from that founding sales hire that oftentimes, most of the time, in fact, 92% of the time, they're not there 12 months later. And the reason for that is not because they weren't good enough. Most of the time, it's because the company was asking more of them than they were capable of giving. And so we always say, like, if you find your unicorn, hire them, but unicorns don't exist. And
when's the right time to like look for a unicorn too? Or maybe, you'll push into that more.
Yeah.
I'm hearing what you're saying. I'm like, I want that, but like, maybe should I be looking for that yet? I don't know.
Sure. Yeah. That's a great question we get asked all the time. Just to fit, the reason for no O was literally stylistic, just so anyway. And if people don't like, I thought it looked cool, we went with it. It was well received, but no, there was really no, basis for it other than I thought it looked good. But to answer that question, when do I hire? Like we hear that all the time. Founder-led sales, you're a technical founder, like sales may not be your thing. A lot of advisors and investors will say like, you've got to go get your first $1 billion on your own. We wholeheartedly disagree with that. We think that as soon as you feel like you have a product worth selling, as soon as you have the ability to bring in a sales specific talent, like you need to be looking to do that. Now, the answer to the question is when you hire your first individual contributor, that's where the mess is created, right? And that's where these statistics come in. Like 92% of first sales hires are gone within a year. And so if we do a postmortem on that, we say, why is that the case? Well, you need a guy that's going to build your playbook. He's going to build pitch decks. So now he's got to be a graphic designer. He's going to do outbound. So now he's got to be a BDR. He's going to do full cycle. So now he's got to close. And oh, by the way, he has to find product market fit, define go-to-market strategy, build a marketing motion. Like all of those things are not, if you can find the guy that can do all those well, he's going to cost you $300,000 a year.
Totally.
Or he already started his own company because he's exceptional, right? And so the truth is, like, Deloitte put out a study, 58% of tech startups are moving to a fractional sales something in 2025. Like 58% of tech startups will be leveraging fractional sales next year. And so that's kind of where we fit in, right? Is like we bring that team, like I said, of 26 to the table. We've got four of like some of the best VP of sales types I've ever worked with that alone would cost you big money. You have those guys working on strategy. You've got some of the best BDRs. We got the #1 rep for Miro 3 years running, who is now working with us, right? Like we've got some of the best talent that you could find anywhere, and you're able to leverage those people for the same price that you would go out and hire that expensive guy, right? And so why not look to a team that is comprised of the entire go-to-market motion rather than just a salesperson? The other thing is like, think about how long it's going to take you to hire that guy.
Yeah.
4 months on average, with another 4 to 6 to ramp and totally get, so you're looking at a full year before you can really evaluate whether or not what does that cost you? With a fractional motion, if it doesn't work, you fire them and you move on, right? Like it's not the risk to your run rate and your runway and your fundraising and your cash flow is much greater in hiring an individual contributor than it is from looking at these fractional opportunities out there. So the long-winded answer to your question is like, you need sales help as soon as you can get it, as soon as you can afford it. But that doesn't mean individual contributor all the time. Now, there are plenty of people that have made that work. I'm not completely dogging that. Those 8% of people that make it happen, like, good for them. That's awesome. They got a great person. But the other 92%, they cost them a lot of time and a lot of money. And a year in startup world is like, it's like bigger. It's more than dog years, like a year in startup world is like a decade. And so if you literally lose a year's worth of runway and ability to raise and all those things, like that impacts your business big time.
Man, that's great. Yeah. And that is kind of like counter, right, to a lot of the, hey, go do the founder led up to a certain point so you really understand the market. Now, I am curious, you make a distinction, right, on your site between sales versus RevOps versus go-to-market GTM. So can you give kind of like the flyover on how you segment each of those, and then maybe after that a double click into where and when you should really be examining each one based off maybe the type of company you are or your current growth stage, right? If you can talk a little bit into that.
Sure. Yeah. So it's interesting, right? Because the reason that's segmented on our site is because there is so much confusion around those things. There's also traditionally in the fractional space, all three of those get like separated. And the truth is, and where we live is at the intersection of all three, and adding an execution piece. Most fractional support operations are strictly strategic or strictly consulting or strictly like, here's what's in my head. Here's my ideas. Look, I don't need just what's in your head. I need an execution of a strategy. And so the reason they're segmented on our site is because I don't believe they segment. I believe they're all part of go-to-market. Like the whole thing is part of that initial go-to-market strategy that you're building. But people, when they see those three different words, they segment them. Now there are three very distinct pieces of that puzzle. Go-to-market really encapsulates all of that, but that's your comprehensive strategy to take what you have built and monetize it and get it in the market. RevOps is the support behind the scenes, building out that it would blow your mind to see some of the CRMs I've seen, and the mess that has been created. And you live and die by your metrics and your numbers. And so making sure that you have that RevOps guru who can make your CRM click and just work, and the reporting there, like that will make you super efficient. And then the sales piece is obviously where we go out and execute on the things that we've built in our go-to-market motion, the things we've supported with RevOps. Now we go out and we actually deploy, SEAL team sales and start selling for you.
I love that. Thank you for breaking that down. So if I'm playing it back, right, it's like GTM is the whole thing, right? RevOps is that kind of orchestration, right, behind the scenes, kind of making sure the whole supply chain is going to run. And then sales is that kind of hand-to-hand combat out
That's
in the
exactly
field,
right.
actually making things happen.
So when you roll your sleeves up and get down in the mud, right? Like that's when it and the unique part about a comprehensive motion or attack there is that like sales never works the first time. And if you think it does,
Mm,
you're lying to yourself. Like it's a constant iteration. It's a constant ideate, iterate, execute, ideate, iterate, execute. We're constantly evaluating, is this sequence working correctly? Is our messaging on point? Those things are going to shift. And so you have to have the orchestra, like I love how you said that, or, it's that piece of like, making the band. You got to have all the pieces. Without the drums, you can't keep time. Without the guitar, you don't have the melody, right? And so
right.
it's having those three working together in harmony that allows your revenue engine to scale and grow.
You mentioned seeing a lot of CRMs that are like a total mess, right? I'm curious, there's so much shiny and new right now, and existing to everything that's been there from the last decade. What are you actually seeing from a tools and processes perspective work really well for these, say, early to mid stage startups? And then does anything change as they get bigger?
Sure. So that's a great question, and we could spend the entire hour on probably just this. As you could imagine, we are an outsourced sales service company that works with all kinds of startups. So every sales enablement tool known to man is beating down our door trying to get us to use theirs, try this, try that.
Totally.
And so I do feel like we've got exposure to a ton of things. So I would segment it kind of a couple of ways. You've got your data provider, what I call the info wars, right? Like there's these data provider wars going on right here. Is it Zoom Info? Is it Apollo? Is it this? Is it that? We use Exact Buyer. Edan is one of the most brilliant people I've ever met. And when we saw his platform, it was a game changer. It replaced Apollo, it replaced Zoom In, it replaced literally everything because it's a data provider. Imagine if Apollo, Zoom Info, Chat GPT had a baby. That's what Exact Buyer is. And it does it AI sequencing, multiple email addresses, all the data is in there, unlimited credits and getting the access to that data. So for our mass outreach, we use Exact Buyer, and I wouldn't recommend anything else. I think it's the most powerful tool in the marketplace.
Wow,
Now
it's quite an endorsement.
it is, and it's worth it. I mean, it's worth it. Like it truly. We don't endorse anything we don't use because we then take that to our clients and deploy that in their
Right.
like this has to work for us to be willing to like use it because if it doesn't work, we don't have a company, right? And so it's a phenomenal tool. Now we also believe that just like cold email is just a tiny little piece of what you do. Like sales is changing, and what I call bottom up sales is another thing that we're really good at, which is getting hyper
Mm,
specific and starting at the bottom of the funnel rather than just dumping a whole lot in the top. Getting really niched, targeted data, and for that we use Upsell. Mark Bedard is he was a Zoom Info guy. He launched Upsell. It's the coolest voodoo magic thing I've ever seen. You click a few buttons on LinkedIn, and all of a sudden it spits all this data into your CRM. It's wild. And
wow.
it is the best mobile phone database I've ever seen. So definitely check out Upsell, Upcell. Mark Bedard's the founder. Great company there. Trellis is the dialer that we're currently using, and we love it. And then we just jumped into Sailboat recently, which is they're still beta, but Joshua Bailey, what they're building over there, like definitely worth checking them out. It's a great way to keep track of what your sales team is doing without making them feel like they're punching a clock. But it really helps with like activity tracking and just keeping the salespeople focused without feeling micromanaged. It's an awesome tool that'll be coming out soon. And then, from a CRM perspective, it's the two big ones, right? I mean, we love HubSpot. Salesforce is also a phenomenal tool. But most of the companies we work with are in that earlier stage where they're not quite there. Salesforce obviously being a much bigger tool potentially, but HubSpot is great. We use it exclusively and love it as well. So those are the tools that I would really really recommend. And then I do have to throw one more in. Sendoso, if you're not familiar with Sendoso, like, you're wrong. It is unbelievable what you can do with that. You can automate gifting with triggers and workflows in your CRM. Like, how
That is
crazy is
crazy.
that, right?
That
Like,
is crazy.
it's wild. They're experimenting with stuff that, like, being able to know when boxes are opened. And so we use them a ton because, again, selling the way you've always sold is not going to work anymore. You have to be nimble and willing to shift and pivot. Agility is the name of the game in sales right now. I mean, that's just what it is. And the direct mail and gifting campaigns have been phenomenal.
Isn't that wild how, like, because everything is going so high tech, the simple thing like creating a physical connection, especially in a very virtual world, right, with something like a gift, like, I mean, what a phenomenal insight by that team, right, to say, like, all right, you and I are very likely not going to see each other, right, but, like, if you receive something from me, it is almost like we got to shake hands in that way.
And they do such a great job of curating what they send. Like, it's not just like, there are certainly simple options. E-gift cards is one of the main things they do. So you send out a $15 gift card or even a $5 Starbucks card for a meeting, right? Like, thank you for the meeting, enjoy a coffee on us. Like, stuff like that, very simple. But, like, for some of our more enterprise or complex sales that are at the C level, where it's really tough to penetrate your prospect market, like, it's getting in touch with that guy is going to be a challenge. Well, they'll curate some of the most, like, super themed and relevant gifts that are just unbelievably thoughtful. And we've seen great results from that. So I definitely would be using Sendoso if you're not.
I'll give you one too. If you do on some of those ever go the gift card route, have you ever heard of Blink Sky? Mark Chambers, Blink Sky, brilliant. So basically, I mean, he's completely turning the gift card market on its head, because I could send you a $15 Amazon gift card, and if you say actually, you know, kind of targets where it's at for me, you can instantly swap it into that. It's wild.
Wow.
It's really cool. He's another one, right? I think on the startup side, that's just like taking that, you know, kind of idea of gift giving, right, and say, what does it look like to make this meaningful, and use technology today to actually make it even more so. Now, you mentioned a lot of tools, and you mentioned AI in a couple places. Where do you think AI is going to actually be really helpful in this sales kind of tool world, versus where are the places that you think people need to be really careful, you know, might make actually some really hurtful missteps potentially for them?
Yeah, well, if you look at LinkedIn, AI is going to replace SDRs and BDRs, and sales is dead, and we're all going to die, and the world's going to end, and it's it's raining acid. Like, I mean, come on, people! Like, it's a tool that certainly look. If you look at the landscape, BDRs, SDRs, it is certainly changing. It's going to get harder and continue to do so, but great BDRs will leverage AI to make themselves even better. People are never going to be replaced in sales. As long as people are buying, until AI starts doing the purchasing as well, people will need to be in sales. And so everybody can take a deep breath. Your job is not going anywhere if you're good at it, right? And so the goal then becomes, how do we leverage AI? And there's so many great tools out there in the sales world to make you better. Lavender, and I mean, even Exact Buyer, like I talked about, like, leveraging it well is the way that you become the BDR that can get a job anywhere he wants, right? But there is a risk in the same breath that, like, by the way, if you let AI write your entire script and your entire sequence, and you're not intentional and utilizing what you have acquired in terms of knowledge and skills to work with the AI, it's not going to solve anything for you. And what it will do is get you blocked on LinkedIn, get you unsubscribed in your email sequences, get you, because it's so blatantly obvious when AI is writing entire messages that, like, you can't just disguise that. That's what I love about Lavender, right? Like you write the email and then AI takes what you've written and condenses it, makes it sharper, makes it more poignant. Like I think that's the way we need to be using it rather than like, let's just let AI do it for us. Because what will happen is you will see your domain score plummet. You'll see your blocked rate on LinkedIn go through the roof, and you'll never get through to me. I can promise you that, because it's so obvious what's happening. And it's just laziness. Like it's just a lack of desire to be great. Like as salespeople, we're built with a competitive A personality. Like we want to win. We want to be at the top of that board. And those type of people aren't lazy, not if they're good. And so I think that the risk is only there for those who are lazy and choose to try to use it as a crutch rather than a tool. If you leverage it as a tool, AI can make you the SDR, BDR, AE, the salesperson that literally can get a job wherever they want, because it can make you an absolute monster if you use it correctly.
And I do agree with you for what it's worth about the people will never be out of sales side of things, right? It's funny. We've even talked about a lot about like our philosophy at Scheduler, I think lines up with a lot of what you've said, right? Where the whole kind of point of what we're trying to do is even take away all the logistics around like you and I being able to sit here and have a conversation, right? Like what is all the work that would distract from you being able to do more of this, right? And really go after that, because to your point, until the actual purchasing is starting to be done by that point, which is crazy. I mean, you see some of this on like Wall Street, right? Where actually you do have all the algorithmic trading and that kind of crazy stuff. But until that's there, like, yes, this isn't going away. People buy from people. How much can we remove kind of in the way of the process is kind of always our bent. And actually, it's interesting, like at Scheduler, we've been asked a few times, like, would you call it Amy at Scheduler or John, right? And would you make it human? And kind of similar to you, I think people can see AI and they know it.
Yeah.
So we're very much so into what I would call like authentic AI. It's like, that what it's here to do, the job that it's trying to do and the scope that it can accomplish, and it's helpful, right? If you pretend to be more, right? Like you think about like those auto AI dialers, right? It's like, you would almost wish that it would just straight up say, hi, this is a quick phone call to make sure that I'm not wasting your time on the other side of this, right? And you'd almost be like, all right, fine, I'll listen to you, right? But like, how can we actually have AI that is authentic in its interactions, or to your point, acts as more of a co-pilot behind the scenes, lets kind of the human take place. We talked about having self-driving cars for a long time, and it hasn't happened, right? And I think there's going to be a lot of in this space, right, where it's been such a rapid rise. People are like, oh, of course this is going to happen now. I don't know. I think that last 10% is going to be a lot more difficult than people realize.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's to be harnessed. It's a tool to be harnessed,
Totally.
to be used, but it will always require a driver, for lack of a better analogy, right? Like it will always require, for it to work well,
a driver or a manager. Like I'm hearing more and more, and I do ascribe to this to a certain extent, right? That you will hire AI autopilots to do tasks, right? And then you will be in charge of managing them. But again, to your point, right? Are you going to wholesale replace SDR, BDRs? I mean, the ones who aren't that good at what they do, like, yeah, probably to that extent, only because to your point, then that allows the absolute best ones to be magnified. Why wouldn't I go hire one of the best?
Well, I mean, it goes back to like using GPT or using any of this stuff. Like,
sure,
it's only as good as the prompts you give it.
100%.
Like it's only as good as what you give it. And so there's even a skill in learning how to harness it. Like if you don't know how to prompt it correctly, it's not going to matter. You're going to get garbage out.
100%. Yeah. I think that is the tough thing, right? That a lot of people don't always realize is, we hear this like, oh, don't have it. Actually, I had a guest on the other day and it was really interesting. We were talking about, the short prompts make long bad outputs. Long input prompts that are very specific make short powerful outputs, right? There's that inverse, right? Of like, if you're not, back to your point, if you're not lazy,
Yeah.
if you are very thoughtful with it, it is going to elevate what you're able to do. If you are lazy with it, it's actually going to spit out longer, less useful things.
Garbage. Garbage.
Total,
Garbage.
total garbage. Yeah, exactly.
I
Its
think
point
that's
is to
the
be
whole
generative,
problem.
right? It's trying to generate.
Right. I think that's the whole problem with AI is like it's not an autopilot. It's not something that just works for you. You have to spend the time learning the tool and investing in the prompts and the prompting and how you do that. And like you said, the specificity of the prompt, like it's not, does it solve for a lot of things? Absolutely. Once you learn how to prompt, does it get easier? Absolutely. But it's like anything else. It's not going to just like save you a bunch of time right out of the gate because you have to
Right.
learn how to be good at it. You have to invest in those skills like you would any other skill. And that's what great anybody that's using AI, salespeople, the restaurant, I mean, all of these people the world is leveraging AI, but it takes time to harness that power and learn how to build and refine those muscles and then go and utilize those, right? Like it's not just a hack. It's a great way to make what you do better. But if you put garbage in, you're going to get garbage out. Bottom line.
And I mean, you've had a long sales career, right? I mean, you've kind of been selling for
My whole life.
your whole life,
Yeah.
right? So like you've seen kind of the storyline of all this happening. Is this like everybody's talking about, right, how this is like a totally pivotal, transformational time in the industry, in sales and everywhere. Do you think that it truly is versus everything that you've seen? Like, is this a real different step change, or is it more of the same, maybe happening a little faster in some places? I'm just curious if you, as you look at the whole arc of things, was it was like everything was the same and now like step change difference, or like, no, I mean we've seen some upticks along the way. This is just another one of them.
So I may not be the most qualified person to answer this question, and I want to give context to this. I spent a decade of my life as an entrepreneur. I have only been in professional sales for 3 years because, believe it or not, I know this will be hard for you guys to believe, but like tech companies want a very specific type of resume,
Mm.
which is small-minded and foolish. But like I had a really hard time breaking in, and so to be honest with you, the bulk of my career it was selling for sure, but it was a very different type of sale. Now, I will say this, that's what I think is my superpower, right? Is like I don't come from a background that is stifled by like corporate trainings and corporate this. Like I've always been a guy that if I didn't kill something, I wasn't going to eat. If I didn't sell something, I wasn't going to be able to buy diapers. If I didn't sell something, I wasn't going to be able to pay my mortgage. My life was like my financial life was literally on the line every single day. And so I don't come into this with the same mentality that a lot of people do, because a base salary was a foreign object to me until like 3 years ago. I took my first
Wow.
W-2 job since high school 3 years ago. And so I will say this, it is a pivotal time in sales. And from the outside looking in, there are more people like me building companies like ours that are doing things in a disruptive way, that if you're just going to continue the status quo, it will be a very pivotal time for you because you will have to literally pivot your career because people are going to take your job. This is the most talent rich environment I've ever seen in any spot in the professional world. I am daily exposed to exceptional people who don't have work. And so it is a very pivotal time because the job market is small, and not because of any other reason than like all the different things we've chatted about today, right? The AI and the efficiencies that are being created and the different direction these startups are going, how fundraising has changed significantly over the last 5 years, right? And so, yes, absolutely pivotal. I would say that is correct, but not maybe in the way that everyone else would say that. I would say that it's pivotal because now is the time to truly differentiate yourself. You have more opportunities than ever to make yourself an incredible asset to your company. And so it's pivotal because your career is going to be defined by how you shift and pivot during this time. And the best ones are going to find ways to get better. And the lazy ones are going to find new career paths. And that's just, unfortunately, the nature of the market that we're in. Now, the one thing more certain than death and taxes, markets are cyclical. They always are. They will always come back. So I don't think we're in this like point of no return period of sales where like it's always going to be we'll remember the good old days, right? Like I don't think we're there. I just think we're in a cycle of this season of the marketplace, and I certainly think that, as it always has, it will continue to cycle and move. And again, great salespeople, great business people, great entrepreneurs have always been pivoters and disruptors. I would also say that that's a question I get asked all the time, and is how, like, you don't have a tech background. I don't have a college degree. I'm an uneducated redneck from Alabama that found his way into a highly technical and highly sophisticated selling motion. How did you do it? Right? I think the answer to that question is the answer to all of this question. Disrupt, disrupt, disrupt. Always find a way to think about things differently and go about your business in a way that if no one else is doing it, you're probably headed down the right path. If you're following what everyone else is doing, you're going to end up like everyone else. The ones at the top are always the ones that found a way to do something in a disruptive manner and shifted an entire thought process or marketplace or industry or vertical, right? Like those are the people that make it. So my answer again is like pivot, disrupt, and this doesn't have to be some pivotal, big red X moment for you. It could be a great opportunity to define where you want to go and how you're going to get there. It could also be the start of a new career path if you choose not to invest in yourself. And that's okay. I think that's something that we should be taking on, is the BDR to AE. Like that's just a march up a ladder. And like, why not BDRs into customer success leadership? Why not BDRs into RevOps leadership? Why not BDRs into marketing leadership? Like these people are the most talented assets in your company, and you treat them like dirt. Why is that?
Why is that? Why? What inspires that, do you think?
I think that it's a natural hierarchical, assessment of things. These people are typically the lowest paid. They're typically they're entry level. They're at the bottom. They're starting their sales career. I think that entry level piece really defines that. And the problem that a lot of companies have is like they see them almost as expendable, because once a BDR gets too good, it makes too much money. Like I can go get another one and replace him or whatever. And then if that guy doesn't want to go be an AE, then what? Right. And so it's just a poor understanding of the foundation of your company, because I almost wish to like unionize in a sense, right? Like if the BDR is scheduled a walkout, it would be a rough month, right? Like just imagine your business with no BDRs for a month. Yeah, I'm talking to you, Mr. Founder. Like imagine your business without your BDRs. There is no top of funnel. Without the top of funnel, you have no bottom of funnel. Without sales, you have no revenue. Without revenue, you have no business. And so truthfully, you should be propping up your BDRs, especially the great ones, and figuring out how you can make sure that they never want to go anywhere. I think it should be okay to be a BDR and want to be a BDR. I know lots of people that enjoy that piece of the sales process. Why do we not incentivize those people who are so valuable to your business and give them a path to stay in the part of the business that they love and still be able to make a decent living and have a good life that they're proud of and a job they're proud of? So I think the answer is like, it's just a poor understanding of where your business thrives and what happens when those guys don't show up for work, right? Like it's not going to be good. So it's one of the things that I'm obviously really passionate about, because I love a BDR. I think it's the learning how to sell on the phone was the most pivotal skill set I've ever learned in my entire life. I'm talking about in my marriage. I'm talking about as a father. I'm talking about as a baseball coach, as a human, as a dad, like all the things. What I learned by banging out 100 calls a day and having a great mentor that walked me through how to do that well served me so well throughout my life in difficult conversations, in heated exchanges, in high pressure environments, in chaos, right? Like I learned how to be calm, cool, and collected, and learned how to keep my emotions in check and be professional at all times, and turn no's into yeses, and sway opinions and bring people to my side and have people see it my way, right? Like all of those things translate over. So I think we really need to focus on making the BDR great again, if you will, right? Like let's understand and value them for what they actually are rather than what like we see them as.
And what would you say to the company that's like, well, Zach, that's great, but I'm just running inbound.
That's a whole different animal. That is a whole different animal, right? The inbound motion, it doesn't require I think that's the world where potentially the BDR role could see a smaller head counts in the future, because the move to more full cycle AE types and the ability to leverage a lot of technology and AI and inbound stuff. Like I think that doesn't require the same set of skills. Now I still have all kinds of respect for those people, but the hard part of the BDR is the outbound, right? Is the outbound motion. That is what separates the cream of the shape, the shaft from the weed, whatever it's called. Yeah, there it is. I'm from Alabama, don't forget. But it's inbound's a whole different animal. I don't know that I would disagree with that particular founder. I think that maybe they should consider how they handle that. Maybe leveraging fractional resources to cover that role or whatever. Like there's 1,000 different ways to attack that. But if you want to be a great BDR, you want to be great in sales, learn how to go outbound.
100%. Yeah, no, it's hard. I definitely, when we were figuring out our motion early on, and I got a challenge from my sales coach who's like, sit down for an hour every day, make the dials. Mm-hmm. Right. I mean, it's brutal. Get on the other side. It's one of those things, though, I think every founder should do a little bit of, just to also have the appreciation, right?
Here's what people don't understand about cold calling. It's not just about the meetings you set. Every conversation you have informs you to the thought process of your prospect. You can only set one meeting in a week and have 50 great conversations that are going to make next week more profitable, more valuable. But I think the problem with the current company or the current individual right now in the BDR space is like, we're only looking at meeting set SQL.
Joe Gilkey is big on this, right? He's preaching on love him or hate him. He's like always preaching on this, right? That like, stop making that the end goal of everything. People can smell it, right? Go out to learn.
Absolutely. And the thing is that people miss all the time is those 50 conversations that you had. Of those, if you're good and you're smart with your follow-up, you can turn 20 of those 50 into SQLs a month from now, 6 months from now, 12 months from now. Something I was reminded of recently, don't forget that the relationships you had 5, 6, 10 years ago are now in leadership roles in places that are likely in the same vein of where they were at a decade ago or 5 years ago or whatever. And so just taking all that data and just throwing it out is crazy. Those conversations are pipeline building conversations that a lot of companies just kind of leave as like leftovers on their plate, and it doesn't take the priority that it should require to like prioritize follow-up to that group. Yes, learn, and you're going to learn a ton, but also follow up with those people. Set a sequence in place for great conversations. Maybe have a couple of them, right? Have them segmented out into like great conversation, never going to be a fit. Great conversation, could potentially fit. Great conversation in our ICP, right? Like they told me no, but it was a great conversation. It was in our ICP. We need to keep that one on tap and set a sequence for all three. Because if every piece of business we've built in the 4 months we've been in business has come from building real relationships on LinkedIn, building real relationships, talking to people. Like a lot of them are referrals from people that have never done business with us, but they've seen what we've been doing. They've been reading our content. They've been engaging with us on Facebook. They've learned our Facebook, LinkedIn. They've learned who we are. And like, they hear something at a startup thing or at a, SaaS conference.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, oh, hey, that Zach, a unicorn, you guys need to talk to this guy over here. Right. And it's like, don't miss those things. Don't get so focused on the granular outcome that like you miss the big picture right in front of you. It's tripping over dollars chasing after dimes, right? Like, don't stop and collect it all and you can make something with it. But it's we're in the economy of now, and what matters is you're only as good to me as your last deal. And that's just kind of the mentality of a lot of sales leadership teams. And it's a shame, but that's how it is.
Well, Zach, awesome having you on here. I really love what you guys are doing, trying to break through as a founder, right? Who's like gone from never doing this into this space. It is wildly difficult. I think we all come in, with rainbows and butterflies, and I'm going to build a great product, and it's just gonna, everyone's going to tell their friends, and their friends are going to tell their friends. It's going to go on, and reality tends to set in pretty quickly for most of us that this is going to be way more difficult than I ever imagined, which is where, professionals like you guys are amazing. So thank you so much for coming on, sharing these insights. I'm sure we're going to be seeing a lot more from Unicorn in the space, and just pumped to see you guys continue to put out great content.
I mean, thank you for having me. I am more than happy to come back as often as you'll have me. So again, just really appreciate the opportunity, and I'm excited to see what you guys are building over there and get to dive into your tool and really, experience the scheduler that you guys are building. It seems super cool and definitely valuable and unique. So again, best of luck to you guys and your team, and I just really enjoyed being here. So
thanks, Zach.
Absolutely.
Have a good one, man.
You as well.